we are going to do a little book reading session. It's going to be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's going to be a short story filled with adventure and, of course, nice book sounds. Let's get started with Snow White. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. By Walt Disney. Illustrations by Don Williams. Long ago, in a far-away kingdom, there lived a lovely young princess named Snow White. Her stepmother, the queen, was cruel and vain. She hated anyone whose beauty rivaled her own, and she watched her stepdaughter with angry, jealous eyes. The queen had magic powers and owned a wondrous mirror that spoke. Every day she stood before it and asked, "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And every day the mirror answered, "You are the fairest of all, O Queen. The fairest our eyes have ever seen." As time passed, Snow White grew more and more beautiful, and the queen grew more and more envious. So she forced the princess to dress in rags and work from dawn to dusk. Despite all the hard work, Snow White stayed sweet, gentle, and cheerful. Day after day, she washed and swept and scrubbed. And day after day, she dreamed of a would come and carry her off to his castle. One day, when the queen spoke to her mirror, it replied with the news she had been dreading. There was now someone even more beautiful than the queen, and that person was Snow White. The queen sent for her huntsman. Take Snow White deep into the forest, she said, and there, my faithful huntsman, you will kill her. The man begged the queen to have mercy, but she would not be persuaded. Silence, she warned. You know the penalty if you fail. The next day, Snow White, never suspecting that she was in danger, went off with the huntsman. When they were deep in the woods, the huntsman drew his knife. Then suddenly he fell to his knees. I can't do it, he sobbed. Forgive me. He told her it was the queen who had ordered this wicked deed. The queen gasped. Snow White. She's jealous of you, said the huntsman. She'll stop at nothing. Quick, run away and don't come back. I'll lie to the queen. Now go, run, hide. Frightened, Snow White fled through the woods. Branches tore at her clothes. Sharp twigs scratched her arms and legs. Strange eyes stared from the shadows. Danger lurked everywhere. Snow White ran on and on. At last, Snow White fell wearily on the ground and began to weep. The gentle animals of the forest gathered around and tried to comfort her. Chirping and chattering, they led her to a tiny cottage. Oh, said Snow White, it's adorable, just like a doll's house. But inside, the little tables and chairs were covered with dust, and the sink was filled with dirty dishes. My, said Snow White, perhaps the children who live here are orphans, and Meanwhile, the 7 men who lived in the cottage were heading home from the mine where they worked. Hey ho, hey ho. The 7 were amazed to find their house so clean. They were even more amazed when they went upstairs and saw Snow White. "It's a girl," said Doc. "She's beautiful," sighed Bashful. "Oh," said Grumpy, "she's going to be trouble. Mark my words." Snow White woke with a start and saw the 7 gathered around her. "Why, you're not children," she said. "You're little men." "I read your names on the beds," she continued. "Let me guess who you are. You're Doc, and you're Bashful. You're Sleepy, you're Sneezy, and you're Happy and Dopey. And you must be Grumpy." When Snow White told her new friends about the Queen's plan to kill her, they decided that she should stay with them. "Oh, we're asking for trouble," huffed Grumpy. "But we can't let her get caught by that wicked queen. I mean that wicked queen," said Doc. The others agreed. That night, after supper, they all sang and danced and made merry music. Bashful played the concertina. Happy tapped the drums. Sleepy tooted his horn. Grumpy played the organ. And Dopey wiggled his ears. Snow White loved her new friends, and she felt safe at last. Meanwhile, the Queen had learned from her mirror that Snow White was still alive. With a magic spell, she turned herself into an old peddler woman. She filled a basket with apples, putting a poisoned apple on top. One bite, she crackled, and Snow White will sleep forever. Then I'll be the fairest in the land. Keep my hand over her. The next morning, before they left for the mine, the 7 wore Snow White to be on her guard. "Don't let nobody or nothing in the house," said Grumpy. "Oh, Grumpy," said Snow White, "you do care." "Now be careful, I promise." She kissed him and the others goodbye. And the men went cheerfully off to work. A few minutes later, the Queen came to the kitchen window. "Making pies, dearie?" she asked. "It's apple pies the men love. Here, taste one of these." She held the poisoned apple out to Snow White. Snow White remembered her friend's warning. But the woman looked harmless, and the apple looked delicious. Snow White bit the apple. Then, with a sigh, she fell to the floor. Told by the birds and animals that something was wrong, the 7 raced back to the cottage. They saw the Queen sneaking off, and they ran after her. As storm clouds gathered and rain began to fall, the 7 chased the Queen to the top of a high, rocky mountain. Crack! There was a flash of lightning, and the evil Queen fell down, her doom below. I'll cover her again. But it was too late for Snow White. She was so beautiful, even in death, that the 7 could not bear to part with her. They built her a coffin of glass and gold, and day and night they kept watch over their beloved princess. One day, a handsome prince came riding through the forest. As soon as he saw Snow White, he fell in love with her. Kneeling by her coffin,